Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I want to welcome all of you here, and a special word of welcome to a former congressman and now our chair of the commission, Norma Mineta, Daphne Kwok, Jinsuk Lee, Karen Nansaki, Senator Akakis, Senator Thomas, Representative Becerra, Representative Ini Faleo-Mavaega, Representative Underwood, to Bill Lanley and all the members of the administration who are Asian Pacific Americans. We just had a picture of over 60 of us, about not quite 90% of the total there. I want to thank those of you who work in the White House and to say a special word of appreciation to Laura Eford, who worked very hard on this event. And to our Director of Public Liaison, Mary Beth Cahill, for her work and support. And I want to say a special word of appreciation to the Asian Pacific American whom I have known the longest in this group, Maria Haley, who helped me put the commission together. I thank her for her work. I am very proud that I've had the opportunity to appoint more Asian Pacific Americans than any president in history. I'm proud of the difference you make every day, whether you're enforcing our civil rights laws, administering our Medicare program, representing America overseas, or in many other countless ways, you make a profound difference. This month, we celebrate the accomplishments of more than 10 million Asian Pacific Americans in every aspect of our nation's life, from engineering to education, science to sports, public service to the performing arts. You might be interested to know that one of the performing arts is speech making, and the speechwriter who prepared this was Sam Afridi, one of the Asian Pacific Americans in our administration. You may be fifth-generation Americans or newcomers to our shores, but you have all enriched our country and reinforced our values of family, work, and community. We should recognize that not just in 1 month, but every day. Thanks to the inventiveness of people like Vina Dam, we celebrate it whenever we use a computer with a Pentium chip. We celebrate it when we read the works of writers like Amy Tan, when we visit the Haunting Vietnam Memorial designed by Maya Lin, when we benefit from the path-breaking medical research of Dr. David Ho, and from countless other Asian Pacific Americans who are leading us to new frontiers of science and technology. And I also want to say that just as we are enhanced when we tap the strengths of all Americans, we are diminished when any American is targeted unfairly because of his or her heritage. Stereotyping, discrimination, racism have no place. And if we can overcome it, America has no limit to what we can achieve. I am proud of the progress that we have made together over the last 7.5 years, both here and around the world. This spring, I was the first president in over 20 years to visit South Asia. Just yesterday, we took an historic step toward normalizing trade with China and continuing our prosperity at home, and I think most important of all, giving us the chance to have a very different 50 years with the Asian Pacific region in the future than the 50 years we have all just lived through. I am very proud of the contributions of Asian Pacific Americans to the longest economic expansion in history, to the lowest unemployment rate in 30 years. I am proud that we have worked hard to spread these benefits more equally across our society. Poverty at a 20-year low, and poverty among Asian Pacific Americans declining by more than 10% since I took office. Last year, the SBA approved loans to Asian Pacific American entrepreneurs totaling over $2.1 billion, more than 3.5 times the number of loans guaranteed in 1992, the year before we took office. We beefed up our commitment to the enforcement of civil rights laws, and we know that in spite of all of the successes, we still face challenges to building the one America of our dreams. So today, I'd like to touch on just a few of those, if I might. First, we face the challenge of ensuring that every American is part of our prosperity. The Asian Pacific American community is the fastest growing racial group in our country, also among the most diverse, with more than 30 different ethnic groups with roots that stretch from Pakistan to Polynesia, Thailand to Tonga, Hong Kong to Hawaii. Some have referred to your community as a so-called model minority. But that label, like anyone, while it has its truths and strengths, masks the rich diversity and the diversity of challenges and disparities we find within the Asian Pacific American community. For example, cervical cancer rates among Vietnamese women are nearly 5 times higher than those for white women. Why is that, and what can we do about it? Over half of South Asian Americans have earned a bachelor's degree, but less than 6% of Cambodian and Laotian Americans have completed college. Why is that? And what can we do about it? Despite the strong economy, almost half of all Cambodian Americans and 2 out of 3 Hmong Americans live in poverty. Why is that? And what are we going to do about it? Let me say, just sort of parenthetically, I was very, very grateful that amidst an otherwise very busy week dominated by the news about our discussions on China, we announced an historic bipartisan accord, thanks to the good work and good faith of the Speaker of the House, between Republicans and Democrats, to launch an initiative to develop new markets in America, to give people the same incentives to invest in poor neighborhoods and people in places that have been left behind here as we give them to invest around the world. And I hope the Asian Pacific American community will, number one, help us pass this legislation as soon as possible, and number two, close the disparities in educational and economic performance within all the groups that make up your richly diverse community. I signed an executive order last year establishing the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and an advisory commission headed by Norm Mineta. One particular focus is going to be on how we can improve our data collection to better identify the specific needs of discrete populations. In a larger sense, the work of this commission is an extension of the new markets approach. We do not have a person to waste in America. We all do better when we help each other, and that's what the White House Initiative and this commission's work is all about. I want to thank Norm and all the commissioners here and those throughout our government for being a part of it, but a special thanks to those of you who've agreed to serve on this commission. We wish you well, and we're all committed to helping you succeed. A second challenge we face in building One America is making sure that our government reflects our growing diversity. I am proud to have nominated Bill Land Lee as our nation's top civil rights enforcer, the first Asian Pacific American in that post. I still hope the Senate will do the right thing and confirm him. Yesterday, I nominated Norman Bay as U.S. Attorney for the District of New Mexico. And I also want to say a word about judges. I have appointed the most diverse group of federal judges in history. They have garnered the highest percentages of top ratings the ABA has given in 40 years. We have shattered the myth that diversity somehow diminishes quality. Today, I want to thank the Senate for the progress made yesterday in confirming 16 judges, but we still have too many nominees who have waited too long. One of them is a woman named Dolly G. I met with her yesterday. I'm going to embarrass her a little bit now. I nominated her for the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. She has some good news in her life. She got married last weekend. The bad news is she's supposed to be on her honeymoon. The worst news is her husband is on her honeymoon in London. But because she wanted to be here with you, she sent him there without her. And I think every one of you should take it as a personal responsibility to try to persuade the Senate to confirm her. Dolly, stand up there. Come on, stand up. Before I took office, it had been 14 years since the last Asian Pacific American had been appointed to the bench. I've had the honor to appoint 5, and Dolly would be 6. 6 is a nice round number, and she ought to be part of it. I thank her for her service in Los Angeles, serving with great distinction on the Federal Service Impasse Board, helping to mediate labor disputes. And again, I say, in addition to that, in her distinguished career as a civil litigator, she has nonetheless languished with her nomination for more than a year in the Senate. The quality of justice suffers when people like Dolly are denied a hearing and a vote. So I hope we will get it. Third, building one America means rooting out discrimination in all its forms. Part of that means healing the wounds of the past. Our budget includes almost $5 million to preserve a number of World War II internment camps. Part of what I know about this stems from the fact that one of those camps was in my home state. We must never forget that sad chapter in our history, or let fear and prejudice jeopardize our rights and our liberties. I'll never forget when I went to Hawaii to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II in the Pacific. I played golf with a number of World War II veterans, and one of them told me that he said he was the only good example of what happened in an internment camp. He was sent to our internment camp in Arkansas, and there was the only place that he could find anyone who made his native food was across the river in Mississippi, so he went over there and met a young woman who became his wife. They let him out of the internment camp, and he joined the military and served with distinction in our armed services. I've never forgotten that, and I still can't believe it happened. And that may be the only good story that ever came out of one of those things. So I would say that we need to do our best to preserve those camps so that there'll never be any new ones in America, and our children don't forget what happened, and the cautionary tale of how quickly good people can do bad things. I'm also really looking forward next month to awarding the Medal of Honor to 21 Asian Pacific American veterans of World War II. Including Senator Inouye. It is long overdue. Finally, let me say we have to do more to combat hate crimes in our society. We see case after case across our land. A man dragged to death in Texas because he was black. A young man beaten and left to die in Wyoming because he was gay. Children shot in Los Angeles because of their Jewish faith. A postal worker gunned down in California because of his Filipino heritage. Hate crimes targets people not because of what they do, but because of who they are. And because of that, they strike at the heart of who we are as Americans. I hope we can pass the hate crimes legislation, and I hope you'll help us to do it. I recently received a remarkable book called Asian American Dreams. In the book, the author, Helen Zia, notes that Asian Pacific Americans, and I quote, are a people in constant motion, a great work in progress. each stage more faceted and complex than before. As we overcome adversity and take on new challenges, we have evolved. Our special dynamism is our gift to America. Thank you for sharing that gift and renewing our nation. Thank you for moving us closer to the America of our founders' dreams, where we don't just tolerate but celebrate our differences, share our rich heritage and history with others, always reaffirming our common humanity. Now, I would like to ask the next speaker to the podium, a World War II internment survivor, the first Asian American to be a committee chairman in Congress, the founder of the Asian Pacific Institute for Congressional Studies, the chair of my advisory commission on Asian American and Pacific Islanders, and my friend, Norm Mineta. Norm, come up.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, when I first came to Congress, I would not have needed that, but I'm now down to 5'8.5". Mr. President, on behalf of your Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and the entire Asian Pacific American community, I would like to express our deepest appreciation to you for your unyielding efforts and commitment in ensuring that people of all backgrounds are provided with equal opportunities. We are proud to join with the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans, NCAPA, in honoring your personal efforts and the historic actions which you have taken to advance equality for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. You mentioned Dolly G. and Bill Landley earlier. They are just two of the record number of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders whom you have appointed to the federal bench and to federal government positions, many to very, very high policy-making positions. There is no denying that the vote of Asian American Pacific Islanders has been strengthened as a direct result of your appointments. As you indicated, you signed an executive order on June 7th, 1999. And that was a great day in American history, because that was the day that you signed Executive Order 13125 to establish your commission, your advisory commission on Asian American and Pacific Islanders. And if I might quote from a portion of that, to improve the quality of life of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders through increased participation in federal programs where they may be underserved, unquote. Unfortunately, as you have already indicated, there was another incident or action taken when Executive Order 9066 was signed by President Roosevelt on February 17, 1942, the only other executive order applying to Asian Pacific Americans. But unfortunately, that one was the one, as you mentioned, that forcefully evacuated and interned Americans who, by accident of their birth, happened to be of Japanese ancestry. And that resulted in the most tragic episode in American history. But your executive order gives vision and hope about the future. And this executive order signals a new era in the relationship between the federal government and Asian Americans and Pacific Islander communities. And as commissioners, all of us understand that we have an opportunity to shape an Asian American Pacific Islander agenda of historic proportions. And together with the community, we intend to deliver. And I am very, very proud and humbled, Mr. President, by your choosing me to chair your commission. But I'm also proud to be associated with this very fine group of Americans who are serving on the commission. And if I might take just a minute to introduce the members of the commission who are in attendance today. Mr. Mike Patel of Atlanta, Georgia. Tessie Guillermo, San Francisco, California. Juan Lay, Chicago, Illinois. And Gloria Caoli, that's right here in Maryland. Mr. President, we are all honored that you have entrusted us with serving you as your liaison to the community. The diverse and experienced team that you have appointed brings an abundance of knowledge and abilities. Recently, the Commission had its first meetings, and we have already mapped out our direction for the term of the Commission. And we are all eager to begin the real work of the Commission and to work with you in your efforts to build a more united and just America. We will be working closely with the federal departments and agencies, particularly with the interagency working group that was established by the executive order. And I might like to thank Deputy Secretary Kevin Thurm of the Department of Health and Human Services for his wonderful work on behalf of the interagency working group. Once again, Mr. President, I wish to commend you for all of your work on behalf of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you very, very warmly. It is now my honor to introduce to you Daphne Kwok, who has two hats that she wears, one as Executive Director of the Organization of Chinese Americans, but she is also the chair of the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans, and she has a presentation to make. Daphne?
Mr. President, the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans, a coalition of Asian Pacific American organizations, is proud to present to you today an award in recognition for advancing the well-being of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders during your administration. We want to thank you for a historic first in the federal government by your Executive Order 13125, the White House Initiative for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, which will systematically and proactively improve the livelihood and well-being of all of our community. As we all realize, strong data for policy decisions are key to identifying the needs and developing effective programs. Since there has never been much information on our community, we have long sought research and data collection specific to our population. With the focus of the Executive Order and the Commission placing on increasing APIA participation in federal government programs, Executive Order 13125 has finally recognized our diverse and growing community. Throughout your administration, you have continued to nominate and appoint the best and the brightest of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community to serve this nation as proud Americans at all the highest levels of your administration. Many of the appointees are all here today, and we are so very, very proud of each and every one of you. And your newest appointees, the members of the Asian Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, which is chaired by the esteemed Norman Mineta, who is also one of the NCAPA founders, so we are also claiming him in our list. Thank you for continuing to appoint us and for allowing us to contribute our talents to working on behalf of your administration and all Americans. We also thank you for working to change the face of the judicial system to more accurately reflect America. We are extremely proud of your nominee, Dolly G., to the U.S. District Court of Central California, and we, under the guidance and leadership of the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association, are working with you to make history for the first Chinese American woman to be seated at the district court level by urging the Senate action towards her confirmation during this congressional session. Mr. President, the entire Asian American and Pacific Islander community eagerly looks forward to returning to the White House to celebrate with you when you give the long-awaited recess appointment to your nominee, Bill Unley, as the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Department of Justice. He has dutifully served for more than 3 years in an acting position, and he has not been afraid to tackle the challenging issues facing our country today, like hate crimes and racial profiling. This nation owes it to Bill Unley for having been and continuing to be on the firing line. President Clinton, during your administration, you are making the following proverb come true for the Asian Pacific Islander American community. One generation plants the trees while the next generation enjoys the shade. Mr. President, we know what a voracious reader you are and history buff that you are, so earlier we were able to present to the President 2 baskets of books of Asian Americans, by Asian Americans, and about Asian Americans, many of them autographed. We tried to fit it into 1 basket, but unfortunately, because of the diversity in our community, we had to go to 2 baskets. So we hope that you enjoy that during your summer vacation this summer. And then you also, after you read them, you do have to be ready for that pop quiz that we're going to give you. And now, Mr. President, on behalf of the members of the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans, and many of our executive members are here today, I would like to ask Jin Suk-lee and Karen Narasaki, the other NCAPA officers, to assist me in presenting to you this award, which we would like to present. The inscription reads, William Jefferson Clinton, presented by the National Council of Asian Pacific Americans in recognition of Executive Order 13125, May 2000. So congratulations and thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to thank again the members of Congress for coming and give them a chance to make their exit. We're adjourned. Let's just stand up and have a good time. Thank you.
의자를 많이 찍고